Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to expand a little bit more upon the idea of technique and introducing it within the piano studio. You've just heard me play for you the first half of Johann Sebastian Bach's Goldberg Variations, the very first variation. And I played that for you so that I could demonstrate the articulation that we seek after as a pianist in performing music that is fast, lively, and is meant to be played very clean and articulate. This is something that as a teacher we should always be helping our students strive to develop. It's a skill that has to develop through time and attention and focus, energy put directly on this skill. If you find that you are lacking articulation in your own playing, then I suggest that maybe some of the tips and tricks that I give you today will help you in your own development, but then of course in the development of your students within your studio. In order to play any of the great composers well, whether that be Bach, who you just heard, or Beethoven, Chopin, Prokofiev, it does not matter who you are performing, from what genre, from what period, they all require that finger strength that comes through time, attention, and focus put on the development of articulation. Now, where does that come from? As a little girl, my teacher introduced me to developing articulation through the tried and true Junior Hannon technique book. Now, she didn't introduce it in the traditional way of just running through the exercises quickly. Instead, she had us focus on two separate techniques when we would play each of the exercises. And perhaps it came from her upbringing in Alberta, Canada. I think she told me that she learned it from her teacher that she took from as a young girl, and then she of course has used it and incorporated it within her studio, and now I use it in my own. But nonetheless, it's something that I did regularly as a young child, and it helped me in my development of the technique that I could play articulate and clean, and it served me well in piano competitions. As a little girl, I could perform pieces clean and fast, and I was able to do well in winning piano competitions, and I contribute it to the exercises that I learned here in Junior Hannon. So I want to share those with you today, how you can use this in the same way. And I ask you that if you enjoy the content of my channel and what I provide and what I talk about, please consider liking and subscribing so that you can continue to learn more tips and tricks in the world of piano. So a Junior Hannon exercise, as I mentioned, it was not an opportunity to just run through a basic exercise. Instead, the focus and attention was put on developing two different kinds of techniques. Number one, strength in the fingers through doing high loud work, and two, legato fast fingers. And so two separate ways. We would practice it two separate ways. The first way was high loud, and then that was followed by legato up to tempo. The high loud was practiced with a metronome at a slow tempo, where I could individually lift each finger straight. It's very important that the technique is straight up to the ceiling and then down curved when it lands, just like so. The exercise is very basic so that the attention can be put on the technique. So if you watch how I do this, I'm going to turn my metronome on at a slow speed, and I'm going to lift my fingers individually to the ceiling and then land with them curved. And I have to play with very, very strong fortissimo fingers, because the stronger you strike the key, keeping every single tip rounded, which means this knuckle in the middle and the bottom knuckle, which I think is the easier knuckle to ignore. And sometimes students have a tendency to want to collapse like this. The more attention that's put on that, the greater strength that will develop within that fingertip. So this is how you do the high loud. played that high loud at metronome 50, but you can adjust it somewhat. You don't want to go any faster than metronome 60 so that there's plenty of time to be focusing on that specific technique. The harder you strike the keys with rounded tips, the stronger the fingers are going to become. I tell my students that if the fingertip doesn't tingle when you're striking the key, then you're not striking the key hard enough. Just like going to the gym where you lift weights and you have that resistance, it's the same idea with the fingertips. The greater resistance you're going to receive from the note pushing back that you give falling into the key. And when that rounded position through both knuckles are maintained, great things happen and those fingertips become incredibly strong, so that after the high loud is done and you switch over to the up tempo, you can go like this. And I should set a metronome speed, but I'm not sure what tempo I'm at, so I'll go ahead and play without the metronome. But this is what you will contrast that high loud with, is the legato up to tempo played fortissimo. And you can hear how that speed and articulation develops because you have the strength in the fingers. Very, very beneficial. You can directly then transfer that technique over to Beethoven, Bach, or Chopin, you name the composer, and you will be able to play the music with much more ease because of what time you have spent in developing the technique. I hope that this has helped you. Try it within your own playing, within your students' playing, and I promise you, you will see a big difference in your students' abilities to play well in their lessons and in their repertoire. I hope you've enjoyed this.